what? I bet you I did forget that. Oh, I'm gonna have to go in and redo the video for this show. I do apologize. I'm started streaming late. Like I said, I'm still trying to get everything around here, and I'm still a little bit befuddled. I didn't start the actual live stream to the YouTube video right away, so I do apologize for being a little late on that. Let me go check up on that just to make sure we're getting a feed in on that. Yeah, it's working. So let me shut that feed off so I'm not getting anything congested here. All right, today it's Free-for-All Friday, so we're going to sort of wrap up the week, and we're going to talk about some things maybe we didn't talk about and continue to talk about things we were talking about during the week here. So without further ado, let's get the show started. We're coming up into the weekend, and I know it's kind of late to order parts, and if you're a husband of the honey-do list and you needed parts for a lawnmower or another piece of power equipment or for an appliance you were going to fix, you should have ordered it already. So you're already going to be on your wife's doghouse list. But if you're looking for parts to fix something around the house, go to the danclemenshow.com and click on the Sears Part Direct widget. By going there, one, you'll find the parts you need. Two, you get a 10% discount off of the parts and more if you use offer code 90055. Now, Sears Part Direct is an affiliate marketer partner with me, and I've used them before. Great folks, got what I needed in a timely manner, and it worked, it fit, and everything was working very well on that. So if you are the handyman around the house and you have that honey-do list that you're supposed to be doing, by all means, if you need parts, go to thedanclemenshow.com and click on the Sears Part Direct widget. All right. Today's daily Bible reading comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 20 through 21. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. Jesus Christ sacrificed his life for us, that we can be reconciled back to God. Okay? I love this quote meal today. It's unknown author. You are free to choose, but the choices you make today will determine what you will have, be, and do in the tomorrows of your life. I like that. You're free to choose, but your choices affect tomorrow. They affect tomorrow. And so my thing to you is make good choices. I did forget to tell you I do have the chat rooms up on both. A real short lesson, but it's a good one. Losing faith. 4 things to do when doubts arise. And this is again by Wes McAdams. He posted this back on June 12, 2017. My streaming computer staying hooked up, and it's using Linux. I wonder if that has something to do with it. I may have to go back to Windows 10 on that one. So I might work on that over the weekend, folks. I'm not sure. When it rains, it pours, right? When it rains, it pours. So I titled this, America wants a free ride. Think about as far as what you want to do and how you're doing it. Do you want to go through your life depending on other people, or do you want to be self-sufficient? Are you capable of being self-sufficient? Are you capable to get things done in life? To support yourself. If you want a family, support the family. Things like that. Or do you want to go through your life living in mom and dad's basement, having a free ride throughout the rest of your life at the expense of other people? I've been doing a lot of investigating this week because net neutrality has been in the news this week. And because net neutrality has been in the news this week, it forced me to do some more research into these folks that are supporting net neutrality, because I don't understand it. I understand net neutrality. I don't understand the support for net neutrality. It's government control of the internet. It was a solution looking for a problem when it was actually really don't understand economics. They now, some of them are big businessmen on YouTube and elsewhere, you know, and some of them are phone companies that are supporting net neutrality. I can understand streaming computers because it keeps kicking off. And again, I was doing some research real quick here. Side note, I was doing some research, and this may not be the best setup I have as far as operating system over in the other computer. It's a Linux, and see if that takes care of the problem. Oh, because it's all choppy. It's coming off and on. The feeds, you know, the streaming feed's good, but it's going to be blanking out a lot of these, a lot of this. I'm hoping it stays up now. So anyway, so the more I investigated into this net neutrality, and especially on YouTube, that's where I was doing a lot of people were putting up videos on YouTube. Some were putting up on VidMe, and the arguments they were making in support of YouTube were nonsensical. They didn't make any sense because, again, net neutrality was a problem in the search, or a solution in the search of a problem. There wasn't a problem before net neutrality. What it was there was people out there that didn't want to have the prospect of paying more for access to the internet or their favorite sites. Now, let me explain something here. I actually own a higher bandwidth going out and coming in because of what I'm doing here with the live streaming on YouTube and trying to get all this stuff done here. So it's important to me to have that higher bandwidth, but it's important for the ISP to get a little extra money for my extra bandwidth. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm a bigger user. So a bandwidth on a residential scale, eventually I'm going to go to a commercial scale, but it's I'm a bigger user, so I should have to pay more. I should have to pay more for that bandwidth. I have no problem about it. When I use more electricity, I have to pay more for the electricity. When I was using more firewood and had to get more firewood, I had to pay for more firewood to heat the house. I'm going to propane this winter. I'm going to have to pay for propane to heat the house, and I may have to pay for more depending on how cold it actually is. I don't get propane for free. You don't get propane for free. And so the internet, honestly, with the ISPs and everything, it's no different. They're a business. And in order for them to, and folks, this is a good example here. Net neutrality switched the internet over to a Category 2 utility, or Type 2 utility, which means it's like electric company, or the gas company, or the water company. And because of government regulations there, the electric companies over the years were restricted on how much they could charge for electricity, and so they had to cut costs somewhere, and a lot of it was in transmission lines and maintenance and stuff like that, just to keep the generation plants going, and also to fulfill their fiduciary duties to their shareholders who own stock in the company. You know, because there's, by law, by government law, they have to be responsible to their shareholders and have a fiduciary responsibility to them. A lot of folks on the internet, especially that support this net neutrality, have no idea about that. They just have no clue about economics. I've come to, I'm not saying every one of them, but the vast majority of them that I listen to on videos, like on Twit. Yesterday I watched a couple of videos there, and just it was all over the net. I got a couple links in my show notes page here today for that. So they don't have an understanding of economics. They don't have an understanding, a lot of them. I'm not saying all of them. Philip DeFranco has a huge online YouTube audience. Does very well, did very well before net neutrality. And as far as I can tell, nothing's changed during net neutrality. Nothing's changed for me during net neutrality. Nothing's been throttled. Of course, it's not supposed to be under net neutrality, but even before net neutrality, I wasn't getting throttled on things. Honestly, I haven't noticed a difference. And if you think about how you run a business, and this is what boggles my mind, you got guys like, and this is not an attack on Philip DeFranco, folks. Please don't take it that way. But you got a guy like Philip DeFranco that understands business. If he didn't, he wouldn't be in the position he's in today. One of the bigger YouTubers out there. He's building out his brand, building out more content for his viewers, and he does charge a premium for some of them to view certain contents. And there's a lot of YouTubers out there that do the same thing. Louder with Crowder does the same thing now. He puts little bits of his show on there, and he has a mug club, and you can pay a yearly subscription to get to the premium stuff. And the same way on podcasts, like Tom Woods has a premium subscriber side. They all do it. And the ones that are, and this is the funny part about it, I'm using Philip DeFranco because I like the guy, I like his shows. A little bit vulgar sometimes with his profanity. But if you can get around that, he's entertaining, and I think he's going to go places even further than where he's at now. But he has to he does the same thing in his business that he's condemning or saying that's going to be a problem out in the internet world, and he's doing the very same thing that net neutrality is supposed to take care of. You're not supposed to throttle these things, and throttling can be a lot of things as far as how much bandwidth you get, or if you have to pay to get into a site, or if you have to pay more to see this or that. Now, I don't have cable TV, so my wife and I sat down and we decided this is what the bandwidth I need for the show, and piggybacking onto that bandwidth, we watch. We have a Amazon Fire Stick, and on that. We don't pay a monthly fee for the Amazon Fire Stick. I'm a Amazon Prime member. I pay a yearly fee for that, so I get free videos on that. I have Netflix, the streaming video on Netflix. We pay for that. I have Hulu, but I don't pay for the Hulu. I suffer through the ads. Now you can get a paid account at Hulu, and it'll take out the ads, and it doesn't matter to me about the ads. It gives me a chance to go up, go to the restroom, or go get popcorn, or whatever. While I'm watching TV on Hulu. I have a CBS Access, which I like a lot of the shows on CBS in the evenings, like NCIS and all the NCISs. So I pay like $5 a month for that access, for CBS Access. So, they're streaming it. They got content out there that they want to put out. They should be able to make a buck off of that. Shouldn't they? Should they not make some money off of that? I mean, are they supposed to give it away for free? And see, that's a lot of the arguments I've seen with these net neutrality. Oh, they're gonna put fast lanes for Netflix and that, and then these other platforms aren't going to get any viewing. And I watch YouTube a lot. I ask my wife. YouTube's like my go-to channel for entertainment. I love watching the YouTube videos, searching for new videos, funny stuff, trailers of movies. I like to watch full-time RVers. Those folks out there, they're putting content out. I like to see their adventures and stuff like that. I love to go out there and do that myself. And YouTube's free to me. I can go watch anything I want. Matter of fact, YouTube's not charging me for coming on here being a creator. Now, they are making money off me, because of the stats, the analytics. They are making money off of every creator, whether the creator's making money or not, because it bumps up their numbers. overall, and shows, look, this is our strength, and then they can go down into categories, and they can monetize the bigger the show. The bigger the show, the more subscribers and the more views. It's not so much the subscribers, it's the view, and the length of view is where you make your money on YouTube. So you don't pay to get on YouTube. So there are a lot of rich YouTubers out there. There was a couple guys out there that showed, I don't think they're supposed to do that, but they were showing like this one young man, he's a gamer, and he has a very big following in that. He said he averages around $60,000 a month off YouTube. I about fell over. $60,000 a month. Now the guy has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and his views on videos after they're out for like a week hit 1 million or more views, and the view time, he's showing the view times are way up. These gamers want to see these videos and see how somebody gets through these games. You know, they want help. Or as I used to tell my son, they want to cheat a little bit. They don't want to have to put the work in sometimes to go do what they need to do. And my son, me and him, and this is a little offshoot of this, but it goes along with what I'm saying about a free ride. When my son was living at home, he used to go on the computer and get hacks for the computer games he's playing on Xbox or whatever station or whatever platform he was using, cheat codes. And I said, Kyle, I said, that's not right. And they're free. And so, you know, when I say it wasn't right, it wasn't something that you were going to go through and learn. Now, if he'd have learned how to get around these obstacles not using the cheat codes, he'd have remembered that, and I think he would have been a better player. But I think these players that use these cheat codes and then go out and play, that's wrong. Now, when I wouldn't call myself a gamer, but I used to love playing, it's called Tribes. I don't know if anybody remembers that game. It's an old game, but it was an internet game. And I was one of the first ones in my tribe. I was like 20 years senior to all these kids, right? But I had a cable modem, way back when. I can't remember when they actually brought them out here in Snydertown. It had to be in the mid 90s, late 90s, something like that, early 2000s, somewhere in that area, around 2000, give or take a few years. And so I had a cable modem, and I was fast, and that was my hack, because on a regular game I couldn't keep up with these younger guys, but with that hack I was way faster, had reaction times way faster, and I was able to go through Tribes like an advanced capture the flag, and I was able to go through and do some major destructions and do that. But I learned on my own. I didn't get hacks. I learned how to do these things by failing, and I'll tell you the truth, I failed a lot trying to go get that flag, and you sort of get regenerated and go out and have to pick up all your weapons again and go after it again. And so a lot of these, and I don't know if this is what a lot of these game sites do, but I was watching some of these productions that they put out, and they're actually talking about how they get, some of these are talking about how they get through here and how they get through here. Some of it is just, you just get to watch this multiplayer game, in action. It's almost like a movie, which, that's fine too. But my point is, there's some YouTubers out there, some gamers and non-gamers out there that are making serious coin off of YouTube, but it doesn't cost them anything to get on there. Now, it's a symbiotic relationship. They're creators on YouTube. YouTube makes ad revenue off of them, and they pay some of that ad revenue to the creators. That's great. But what would these creators do if YouTube changed that model someday and said, if you're going to be a creator on YouTube, now users just look at YouTube, we're not going to charge them. But let's say you're a creator on YouTube. What would these creators do if they said, look, you're going to have to pay so much a video or so much a month to get access to the service? Now, I'm on Blog Talk Radio, and I pay, it's not much. It's under, I think it's just under $30 a month for the access I have. I can go up to a 2 hour, two or three, maybe it's 3. Right now we're doing an hour and a half show today. But, I can go up, I'll say 2 hours. I haven't looked at it lately because I only do an hour show. But I pay for that service. It's not free. I mean, I can get a free, I can go on there for free, but I only get to do a 15-minute show, which that may be fine. I could probably live with that, but I want to put out some content. My listenership on Blog Talk Radio is averaging over 300 listeners a day, every week, and that's good for me. I wish I was getting up there on that on my YouTube, but I'll eventually get there. I am confident that I will get there on YouTube. I have no doubt about it. But if I was a creator trying to get on YouTube and they told me I had to pay a monthly fee for that, I would look and see what the monthly fee was going to be, and if it was reasonable to me, then I would go ahead and do that. But if it wasn't reasonable, I wouldn't do it. Period. And you have to make this choice. But the company, YouTube, the company, or Google, or whoever you're talking about, Verizon Wireless, whatever, if they want to charge you for using their infrastructure, I don't see anything wrong with that. Because they have to maintain their infrastructure, and in maintaining it, sometimes they have to buy new equipment, or they have to hire people and have people on hand to take care of the networking or any issues that they have, and that costs money. It's not free. And if something happened with one of these ISPs or these internet, these other providers here, if something happened, then what? You see what I'm saying? What are they just gonna die out, or are they gonna start charging for access? So, folks, the title of the show may be a little harsh. Americans want a free ride at the expense of other Americans, and we call that freeloading. That may be a little harsh, but there's some harsh realities in life, folks. There really, really is. Now, Netflix. I'm promising I'm going to do a video. I got I don't have enough research done to do the video justice, but I'm going to be doing it. There's a certain percentage, and it's relatively high, 20 to 30% of viewers on YouTube share or are using a shared password from a friend to stream videos. So basically, they're streaming. I'm paying a monthly fee to stream the videos, TV shows, movies, documentaries, stuff like that on Netflix. I pay a monthly fee. I do not give my password out to anybody. Okay, not at all. And so I'm getting a service, and then let's say my next door neighbor has a friend that has Netflix, and they just, you can use my password. It doesn't matter. So my next door neighbor is freeloading off of that friend, and Netflix is losing money. Now, there's some people out there that will tell you, that's okay. They're a corporation. They can handle that. It's like, but that's not the point. The point is you're using a service that costs other people money, and you're not paying your fair share. Wi-Fi. Big thing on the full-time RVers, right? Wi-Fi services. I talked about this yesterday, but I want to just reiterate this. They have these Wi-Fi rangers that can reach out a couple miles and pick up Wi-Fi signal and bring it in real strong. And if it's an open Wi-Fi signal, they can piggyback on that. And the people who have that open may not realize they have it open, and they're getting their internet access piggybacked by you, and you're not paying nothing for it. Now, at one time, and I would be doing this if I was full-time RVing. I would, if I had a hotspot and a Wi-Fi on my camper, I would set up a Wi-Fi where you'd have to pay like $5 a night if you want my internet access, and I would limit you on no streaming, just to look up emails and do some web searches and stuff like that, but have it very limited on that for $5 a night. There was somebody out there, I don't know who they were doing that, and some people complained about that. Now, a lot of campgrounds you go to, they have free Wi-Fi for you to use, but it's not always the best Wi-Fi. And so people complain about that. There are solutions and way around it. One is AT&T, Verizon, Sprint hotspots, or a lot of the newer phones, whatever service you're on. If you have like I have Boost Mobile with I have Boost Mobile with that you can turn your cell phone into a hotspot. I got to stop drinking. I got to get my coffee drink here because we're having some issues. We're getting a roof re-roof, but I got a couple small leaks up there. See if we can catch those. Okay. Yeah, I don't want I don't want things all over my keyboards and everything. It is really, I can't hardly see the backyard out there. It's raining that hard out there, so hopefully we can keep everything up. I'm right at 1 hour left on the show here. But getting back to my freeloading, so there's a lot of that going on. Walmart allows people to stay overnight. Not all of them, but a lot of them allows campers to stay overnight, like 1, maybe 2 nights at the most. There are full-time RVers out there that their planning is never to use a campground. Never to use a campground. They always use the free parking, either rest areas, or they use truck stops, or Walmart's, Costco's, Cabela's has some overnight campings and stuff like that. So they use all that. I gotta move some papers here, folks. I apologize for the interruption here. But they use these as part of their strategy in being able to full-time RV. Now, I've always had a problem with that. Now, there are a lot of these folks, and this is going to go into my whole thing about freeloading and getting a free ride at other Americans' expenses. There's been some places around where there's campgrounds around these towns, and they've actually got the city to pass an ordinance to say there's no overnight camping, and within the city limits, and that includes Walmarts and stuff like that. And some people still do it and don't get caught. Other people have got caught and got a warning, and they get mad about that. Well, it's Walmart, it's none of the city's business. But the problem is, here you got these business people out here, they're trying to make a living with a campground. And a lot of them that you see, not all of them, but at least a lot of campgrounds you see are well kept, well maintained. They got full hookups. Some of them, I know I would check in some KOAs and some other national campgrounds like that. They do have like just overnight campsites that are like a half to a third less, or 2/3 less than the full, your full hookup. So you give you like electricity and that's it. They don't have water and everything. They got a water station and a dump station you want to use for that. But if you're always staying at Walmart, these people are actually losing out of money. Now I know some people might disagree with that, and there's a lot of full-time RVers out there that disagree with that, saying, well, we go in and spend money at Walmart. You don't spend every night you're at Walmart, every time if you stop at Walmart every night, you don't spend enough at Walmart to make up for the lost revenue of those businesses in that town. Not even close. And even when this one video I was watching, they said, well, we go in there and buy stuff and then we buy gas. Well, you can't count gas. You're going to buy that anyway, whether you're staying at Walmart or you're staying at a campground. Now, if they choose to do that, that's fine. And if I'm traveling and I got to get somewhere quick and don't want to set up and unpack, like I got a couple days to get somewhere, yeah, I'll definitely pull into Walmart and stay overnight and get out of there first thing in the morning. I'm always that conscious about those things. But there's other places. This one YouTuber, Nomadic Native is the name of his program on YouTube. I've been following him. Here, this guy stays, and I didn't realize this, and I started checking out. There are a lot of county RV parks. Might hold 4 or 5 RVs in them. And some of them actually have electricity. Most of them don't have dump stations, and they do have water in season. You just got to take your hose over to it so you can fill your tanks up. So you at least have that. And that's something that the county does, and they offer it for free, and that's great. If you want to avail yourself to that, that's fine. There's other places you can park for free, like Army Corps of Engineer sites have free sites. Golf courses. There's a whole network of these golf courses where you can stay one night for free. There's Harvest America, I think it's called, something like that. vineyards and orchards and farms and stuff like that that allow you to come out and boondock. And they usually have stores on them, stuff like that, but you're not under any obligation to buy anything in there. A lot of people do, and that's fine. But you're actually out there. There are businesses out there to actually offer you those things for free. And if they offer for free and it's not a full hookup, that's not comparable to a campground that does offer full hookups. And like I said, I know I'm getting into some dangerous territory with some folks here that I follow on YouTube. But for me, and my idea of this, if your plan is to always not go to a campground, and when I was a truck driver, I was always kind of mad when I would have to pull over for my 8-hour break, and I was under the old rules. I had to pull over for my 8-hour break, and I was not adverse to staying in a rest area. But there were times I pulled in a rest area, and there was 5, 6, 7 campers parked in there. And it filled up the place, so I'd have to go down the road a little ways and see if I could find another place to park. And I was always mad at that because I can't take my tractor trailer into town to go to a campground and stay. I never get in and out of the campground. But these campers can. And I always thought that was kind of discourteous to the truck drivers that have no other choice. We have to take a break at certain times. Campers don't. You know, private campers like that, they don't have to take a break at certain times, and they can actually go in and find a campground. It always upset me about that because, you know, we were under federal law that we had to take these breaks. You know, we drive 10 hours, take an 8-hour break. So that always upset me. And to me, I thought, man, that was freeloading to me. You know, because you're using up the space. Like I said, a truck driver can't just go off an exit and go find a campground, park at a campground. First, they're not going to allow him to do that. And it would be too dangerous for the truck and the equipment and the community he was trying to get off to go look for a campground. But a camper's different. But there's a lot of people out there that don't plan their camping that way, especially full-timers. They look at rest areas like that as being free camping for them. They don't have to spend that money. Don't have to spend that money on that. And then, but they don't think about the unintended consequences behind that. There's a truck driver that needs to get off the road because of federal regulations and hours of service regulations, and he can't. He's not allowed to because there's no parking, because there's campers parked in the place. I could go on and on and on about this, you know, about the freeloading and that. But hopefully you get my point. And this is what I was finding out in my study of my research into this phenomenon of net neutrality and why all these people wanted it. And the vast majority of them, the reasons why they wanted it was throttling and blocking. And I think they were afraid that they might have to pay a few bucks to get access to actually be a creator on YouTube or some other site. I'm on YouTube and VidMe. If you look down at the bottom of my screen here, I keep these up all the time. I don't know if that's proper or not. Don't care, because that's the way I choose to do it. But VidMe, I got my Patreon up there, and I got my subscribe button. Now you can't subscribe on the video, but it's always in the links down below the description of the show. My Patreon account. If you want to support the show, go do that. You know, and he's all set up. And so if you want to support the show, I have a Patreon account. And if you don't want to support the show, that's okay. But just think about the work that I put into this, the money I put into the equipment, the time I'm putting into this, trying to make this a better program as the weeks, days, months, and years go by. Think about all the money I put into it, and you know, think about, you know, $5, $10. I'm not asking for much. $1. You know, if you think this content's worth it, support me, please. You know, and one other way you can support me, it doesn't cost you a dime, is hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, hit the like. That doesn't cost you anything but a couple seconds. And that helps me grow the show with subscribers and viewership. And the more subscribers I have and the more people get talking about it, the more viewers I'm going to get. I mean, it's that simple. But again, even folks, there's a couple shows that I support on Patreon, have for a while, very minimal, that I give them, even though I am laid off. I may have to revamp that in the future. Right now, I'm sticking with it. And once I start making money with YouTube here, Blog Talk Radio, and be able to support my family and have extra money, then I would like to support some other creators on YouTube. Now, for me, just giving a shout out like to the Phil DeFranco show that's on YouTube, said I average over 300 listeners on Blog Talk Radio. He didn't ask me to do that. I didn't ask him if I could. That's free advertising for him. It's word of mouth. It's worth your time to go over and check out, but I just got to caution you, there is some profanity in that. If you can get around that, it's got some good contents in there, and they do some funny things on the show. At least he talks about some funny things on the show. And there's other ones that I watch, and eventually, like Roaming Millennial, a young lady there that has her head screwed on straight and very commonsensical. Lauren Sutherland. I always talk about her, so she's on my mind. I link up in the show here, so people see that, they go over to her. So I do support my fellow YouTube creators in that sense, to where I'm linking and I'm talking about them and making recommendations to you about those. So I'm trying, even though I can't afford to give them something, at least I can do this little bit with my show, that I can actually go through and mention them and give them a shout out, and for whatever it's worth, and I always tell you who my articles that I use. I tell you who wrote them, what website I found them on, and if I have a date, I'll give you the date for them. It's just that simple there too. So my advice to you is, don't go through life being a freeloader. If you get something for free, thank somebody for it. If it's Walmart, send them a thank you note for allowing you to stay overnight in their parking lot. If it's something else, thank them. Send them, thank them for them. If someone is mentioning you in a YouTube video and you know about it, send them a line. Just thank them. You don't have to reciprocate in kind and mention them in your YouTube video. I mean, it's nice if they do that, but that's not totally necessary. If they just shoot you a line back in the message, say, hey, I appreciate you promoting my video on your show. And just something simple like that to let them know that you're thinking about them and you're not trying to be a freeloader to get through life for free on the back. And nothing's actually free. Someone's paying for that. Walmart has to pay, especially campers. I don't know how many times I went in a Walmart parking lot and seen these bigger campers, Class C's and up, that have the hydraulic jacks. They have them down on the pavement without any support, like wood or those plastic, those square plastic pads you can set them on to disperse the weight. They have them set on there, and they make dimples in the asphalt, and eventually those dimples are going to be potholes, and then Walmart's going to have to go through eventually and redo that parking lot because somebody didn't follow the rules. So, again, there's always unintended consequences. And I'm of the opinion, if I go out and do any type of traveling in a camper, or if I decide one day that me and my wife are just going to go and be full time for a couple of years, just get out and see America, then me personally, I'm going to support the campground systems. I'm going to support local campgrounds and do things like that. I'm going to try to stay in some state and federal parks if I'm allowed. If my size isn't too big and there's room and stuff like that, I'll do that. And even those. A lot of those you have to pay $10-15, or a lot of them don't have hookups for your camper, but you can get to stay. You still have to pay for those, and I don't hear people complaining too much about that. But like I said, there's also KOA, Thousand Trails. I know I'm getting into a camping show here, but what I'm saying is you need to support the people around you instead of being a freeloader. And you need to, if you're living in your mom and dad's basement and you're a YouTuber and you're making 5-6 figures, you need to move yourself out of the house. I'm telling you, you need to get out on your own. All right, let's get into some articles that I have here that I want to go over. There's one here. We were talking about Natalia, and let me get into that. 5 times Democrats tried to work with Russians to swing elections, and this is some research done by DailyWire.com on July the 12th by Aaron Bandler. The left has been screaming for Donald Trump Jr.'s head after it became known that he met with a Russian government attorney with the intent of obtaining opposition research on Hillary Clinton. While this was wrong, but not illegal. And I said this yesterday. He was foolish and didn't use common sense in this, but he didn't break any laws here. The Democrats aren't really in the position to lecture about Russian collusion since their party has a history of attempting to work with the Russians to swing elections. One, former Senator Ted Kennedy, Democrat Maryland, twice reached out to the Soviet Union for election help. According to Michael Reagan, Senator John Toomey, Democrat California, at the behest of his friend Ted Kennedy, lobbied the Soviet Union to sabotage Jimmy Carter's foreign policy efforts, as this was during Kennedy's primary challenge against Carter in 1980. In 1980, one 1980 document stated that Kennedy offered to condemn President Carter's policy towards the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in exchange for KGB help. Wrote Reagan, news accounts of that period proved that Kennedy did, in fact, openly criticize Carter's Afghan policy. Okay. 2012, Barack Obama said that Dmitry Medvedev, the Russian president at the time, after my election, I have more flexibility. Most of us remember that. Okay. Number 3, Jimmy Carter tried to work with the Soviets during the 1980 election to improve his chances against Ronald Reagan. Now, in the same election cycle that Ted Kennedy was trying to defeat Jimmy Carter in the primaries, Jimmy Carter turns around and tries to get the Russians to help him against Ronald Reagan. 4, Bill Clinton pledged to support Russian President Boris Yeltsin in 1996 if Yeltsin agreed to clear up negative issues. So again, he reached out to him. And then number 5, when Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House, he wanted the Soviets on the Democrat side during the 1984 elections against Ronaldus Magnus, Ronald Reagan. So there's just 5 examples. I imagine if they keep digging, they're going to find more. So we have hypocrisy from the Democrats, and that's nothing new, folks, with this hypocrisy. And so, again, Donald Trump Jr. was foolish, didn't use common sense, but he didn't break any laws, contrary to popular belief. We talked about Blumenthal up in Connecticut, how he's screaming about, well, he's going to do jail time for this. And like I said, he didn't break any laws. Now, the laws they're saying he broke, they're stretching him to the point. And this is what anti-freedom folks do, and they do it with the Constitution all the time. They stretch them to the point to try to make them fit a situation that it's never going to fit. It's not going to happen. Well, this was I don't say it's a funny story, but it's an economic story that I'd like to share with you here. H-2B shortage forces local hiring. Now, the H-2B is like temporary foreign workers coming in and working like for the summer, stuff like that. This is by Will Rackey over at Daily Caller. He published this yesterday. Businesses in Bar Harbor, Maine are turning to locals to make up for the shortages of foreign guest workers that normally fill summer jobs in the bustling seaside resort town. Because the H-2B visa program has already reached its annual quota, Bar Harbor hotels, restaurants, and shops can't bring in any more foreign workers for the rest of the busy summer tourist season. Like hundreds of similar coastal resort towns, Bar Harbor has for many years depended on the H-2B visas for H-2B visas for temporary workers. The program allows non-agriculture companies to bring in foreign labor if they are unable to find suitable employees domestically. And as we read down through here, you're going to come away with the idea that they could find workers domestically, but they just weren't willing to pay the cost for those workers. Now they are coming up with creative ways to attract local labor, reports the Bar Harbor Daily News. The Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce will hold a job fair Saturday in an effort to recruit significant numbers of workers from the region. Just about every kind of business in the town is looking for help, says Chamber Executive Director Martha Searchfield. All types of businesses, retails, restaurants, the tour boats, all trips, everything. All types of workers are needed, she told the Daily News. The shortage is so acute that companies are sweetening incentives for local workers. Searchfield says some businesses are offering flexible schedules that might appeal to older workers who might be interested in working a day or two each week. And other companies have gone so far as to offer higher wages to entice locals. Okay. I will stop the reading on that because that's just too funny. If they're willing to offer these higher wages, that means they're still going to be making a profit, because they wouldn't do it if they're going to make a profit. You're not going to hire somebody and lose money. So I'm wondering how much they're actually paying these foreign workers. Now, there might have been minimum wage, and they should be paying a minimum wage. But again, it amazes me how if you offer a little extra money, you get local workers. You have no shortage of local workers, and so there. I just find that funny, the irony in a lot of this stuff that goes on out there. It really does. Well, here's a couple stories, and this sort of got me really looking into this net neutrality. This one here, both of these are from Electronics Frontier Foundation. And one didn't have a date, and the other one has a July date. And the first one by Elliot Harmon, Historic Day of Action, Net Neutrality Allies send 1.6 million comments to FCC. Now, when I first read that, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I looked at the article. There's nowhere where they say these all 1.6 million came from supporters or allies of net neutrality, because I sent one in that was definitely not being an ally of net neutrality. And I started reading through the article, and here this Electronics Frontier Foundation seems to be part of the anti-freedom press out there. They report on a lot of things have to do with, of course, their name, Electronic Frontier, but very skewed in their reporting, and there was on Wednesday about 1.6 million or so comments sent to the FCC for comment on getting rid of net neutrality. But they're claiming these 1.6 are coming from all their allies. And I'm waiting to see what the breakdown is after the FCC, crunches the numbers with their computers and stuff and see how many for, how many against it. And this is the important thing. I was watching, and I'm going to try to remember to Reason TV. Let me put the link, Reason TV interview. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes page, where Reason TV was interviewing Director Pai, and it seemed to me like if your reasonings weren't backed up with some common sense and reason or facts, they weren't going to be taken seriously. And a lot of what I read, these formulated letters, were just that. And as far as I'm concerned, if I'm looking at comments, and I've been told this before by some folks who, this was years and years ago, when they get comments, if it's like a formed fax or something like that, and I believe it was a comment by a elected official, and I'm kind of foggy on that. But they said the formed ones, they would glance over and see which pile they went in. But the ones they gave serious consideration to were the ones that weren't coming in a form. It was a typed in or a mailed in comment about whatever. So that was very telling to me. And I would think along the same lines. If someone's going to fax me a form letter and sign their name to it, I'm not going to give a lot of weight to that. I will consider it, but I'm not going to give a lot of weight to it. I'll give more weight to the people who took time to type something out. And that's what I did. I wrote like a paragraph on my support for getting rid of net neutrality, how economically bad it is, how it's a solution looking for a problem. And that's basically what Director Pai said. So I don't care how many millions of these he gets in. If a lot of these are form ones, even if they're against net neutrality, but they don't explain in their own words why they think it's against net neutrality, like I said, I'd put it in a pile saying, they're against getting rid of net neutrality, but I wouldn't put a lot of weight on them. Now, you may agree or disagree with me on that, and that's okay, but, that's the way I look at it. Because if someone's going to, if someone gives me a thank you card or get well card or birthday card, and all they do is sign their name to it and they put a little note in it, I want to thank them for giving me the birthday card, but it doesn't mean as much to me as if someone took the time and wrote a note in there. Wishing me, a happy birthday, maybe saying what's, something happened in their life. Now, in this historic day of action, and the one thing that never came out on all this research I've been doing with net neutrality, they weren't complaining about how bad government control is. And something was like smacking me in the back of the head. Dan, there's something there. Dan, wake up, look at that. Come on, Dan, whap, finally I'm like, wait a minute. These guys like government control. They do. They like government control. And once my brain switched around and started looking at it from a different vantage point, then I started seeing all these anti-freedom folks that were in support of net neutrality, and their reasonings were to make everything equal for everybody. You know, we got to stop these bad crony capitalists out there. And in my mind, if a corporation you have to prove that they're actually participating in crony capitalism before I'm not going to use them. It's just that somebody just can't accuse corporations because you don't like them. And that's where, folks, for the most part, when they talked about corporations in this net neutrality deal, that's exactly how they were looking at them. They were looking at these corporations, big evil folks, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, when there's no history of them even trying to attempt to do that. And the only thing they look to, the only thing they actually point out is these cellular phone companies that you buy a plan with like 10 gigabytes of data on your cell phone, and once you cross that, you get throttled down on how quick things come into your phone. And they're like, oh, they can't do that. Either we have internet access or not. And I'm like, but those cellular phone companies have to have infrastructures to hook into the internet, and that costs money to set up those infrastructures. And if you agreed to that limit. And if you bump up against that limit and go over it, guess what? You agreed to that also. So the phone companies didn't break their contracts with you. They didn't. And this was that was one of the main reasons they were talking about throttling, you know, with these cell phones. And I'm like, well, I'm on my internet. I never get throttled. Well, if you're on your cell phone, you do. I'm like, yeah, and if you look at your plans, and I looked at some other plans, you can buy more expensive plans to get more bandwidth. You know, instead of 10 gigabytes, get 20 gigabytes of bandwidth a month. But it costs more. That's the key. Those two things are the key. It costs more to get that, and they're not willing to pay that. So instead, what they want to do is have the government come in and say, hey, you guys, if you're going to give me internet access, you cannot throttle them. And what's that going to do to the businesses? They're going to lose money. They're going to lose money because they got to put infrastructure in that they can't pay for. Sorry, I mean that's the way businesses work. And I wish some of these YouTubers out there would actually start talking about that. I'd love to talk to Philip DeFranco about how he's how he's spreading out from the Philip DeFranco show and doing these other things he's doing. He's not bringing money out of thin air to do that. He has a lot of supporters, and he knows that in order to do what he wants to do, he's going to have to spend money to do it. No, he's not going to be able to go to Home Depot or Lowe's and say, hey, I need all this lumber. He's building out another studio right now. I need all this lumber, and you got to give it to me for free because, you know, I'm trying to keep my costs down. Well, that's the same thing with phone companies and providing people with more bandwidth. They got to put more equipment in. They can't go to their equipment providers and say, hey, my customers want more bandwidth. I need you to give me those servers for free so I can give them more bandwidth so I can keep my profit margins where they need to be, because the government says I can't charge any more for that bandwidth. You see where I'm getting at? And so I wish honestly, all they got to do is turn around and look at their own business and how they're actually doing that. And they're not robbing anybody to do that at all. And then the other point here is these two articles were on the Electronic Frontier, Historic Day of Action. Then AT&T and Verizon, other telco providers lag behind tech industry in protecting users from government overreach. EFF annual survey shows. I about fell off my chair laughing, rolling on the floor laughing. Ha 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 ha! In one breath, net neutrality is government control of the internet. Make no mistake about that. It is government control of the internet. And in another article on their same site, and they don't allow comments on their site, which that irks me to no end. If you're going to put stuff out on the internet, you should at least invite comments to your stuff. If you don't want comments to your stuff, don't post the internet. That just irks me. So I actually went over and found their Twitter site. I'm not trolling them. And I told them about their hypocrisy. I haven't heard anything back yet as of this morning. I don't know if I'm going to hear anything, but it's funny to me how they're claiming that these companies are lagging behind in protecting users from government overreach and privacy issues and stuff like that. And I'm like, but with net neutrality, you are inviting government overreach into your life. They just don't get it. They don't get it. And so I have to, honestly, folks, I have to put these people in. I only have two columns in life when it comes to politics. It's either you're for freedom or you're against it. Either you want people's freedoms and liberties protected so they can make their own choices, so they can shape their own tomorrows, or you're against it. And you want the government or groups like you or whatever to control people's lives and make choices for them. So politically, economically, either you're for freedom and liberty or you're against it. There's no left, right. There's no liberal or conservative. It's either you're for freedom or you're against it. And you know where I stand. I'm for freedom. I'm not for anarchy. I'm for freedom. I'm for everybody having the free choice to do things that they want, and I want liberty by law. If you make a contract with AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or something like that, and it has in their contract that says if you go over your monthly usage, your bandwidth usage, they're going to throttle you back. That's in the contract. If they throttle you back, did they break their contract? No. If you went over your not your minutes, but your data plan, and you get throttled, whose fault's that? It's not AT&T, it's not the telecom companies or telco companies. It's yours, because you didn't know how to regulate yourself. Now I have. They call it unlimited on Boost Mobile, but I went in and read, and you got to read the fine print. It's a 10 gigabyte a month bandwidth on that. And I don't use my cell phone like I do a computer. If I want to do something with the computer or even my cell phone, I'm going to hook up to Wi-Fi, which I have Penn Teledata, so when I'm in Sunbury, PA, I can hook up on their hotspot in Sunbury. Or if I'm at a restaurant that offers free Wi-Fi, I'll hook up to theirs on there. But once I get out of that, if I'm on LTE or 4G, that's where your bandwidth goes up, and that's where a lot of people are. LTE is fantastic, but it's going to eat your bandwidth up, and I know that. So I'm not going to do a lot of heavy computing on my cell phone. I'm going to wait till I can get hooked up to a network or or Wi-Fi, or get my laptop out and get hooked up to something. Again, these arguments are, one, they're hypocritical. On one hand, they want the government to control. On the other hand, they want the companies to protect them from government overreach. I mean, make up my mind for me, folks, please. What do you want? I want freedom. And like I said, I'm finding out that a lot of these folks over there are in the tech industry and the tech everything on YouTube and on the internet in general are very liberal and very confused about their politics and very hypocritical. Very hypocritical on their comments. Now here's a story here from Molly Hemingway from thefederalist.com, posted yesterday. Christians who believe in the First Amendment are a hate group. A hate group. Now, you know me on this show, we're a PC free zone. And I consider folks who band together to push this political correctness, they are an actual hate group. To say that Christians who believe in the First Amendment are a hate group, I saw that headline, I'm like, is this clickbait or what? ABC's News, Pat Madden and Aaron Galloway smeared Christians who believe the Bill of Rights secures religious liberties as a hate group. In an article this week, headline, Jeff Sessions addresses anti-LGBT hate group, but the Department of Justice won't release his remarks. The lead of the story made it clear this was not just the work of a rogue headline writer, but the failure of reporters themselves. Attorney General Jeff Sessions delivered a speech to an alleged hate group at an event closed to reporters on Tuesday night, but the Department of Justice is refusing to reveal what he said. First, a note that you can and should read the prepared remarks. There's a link in there. I went over and skimmed them of the Attorney General here at the Federalist. Who is this hate group? Alliance Defending Freedom is not a hate group at all, but a civil liberties organization that battles for religious liberty, and they are not a fringe group either. They just weeks ago won their most recent Supreme Court victory, Trinity Lutheran versus Comer, 7-2. It was their fifth Supreme Court victory in 7 years, during which time they had no losses at the Supreme Court. Now let me stop. We talked about this, the Trinity Lutheran versus Comer, and I'm not a part of the Lutheran Church. I do not want my tax dollars going to pay for a playground that Trinity Lutheran Church should be paying the upkeep and maintenance on. I think that was a wrong 7-2 decision. And I'm an American citizen. I ain't afraid to say it. And I don't think I'm in the wrong on this. Okay? Whether they won it or not doesn't matter to me. And the group is ranked among the top law firms in the country for the successes at the Supreme Court. Most recently, the nonprofit law firm found out the Supreme Court agreed to hear another one of their cases dealing with artistic freedom and religious liberty. To characterize such an accomplished civil rights group as a hate group is unacceptable and inexcusable. It boggles the mind why ABC News, in the midst of creating credibility, would disparage Christian efforts in favor of religious liberty in such a malicious way. Excuse me, I was struggled on that word for a second. How in the world did this happen? Well, for some reason, ABC News chose to wholly adopt the Southern Poverty Law Center's framing of the significance of the Attorney General's speech to the group. Check it out. Here's why reporters such as Pete Madden and Aaron Galloway should be wary before slightly rewriting SPLC press releases and passing off the work as their own. Southern Poverty Law Center previously had a reservoir of credibility based on a history of good work exposing legitimately nefarious individuals and groups. In recent years, however, that reservoir has all but dried up as the Southern Poverty Law Center has gone after reasonable groups it merely disagrees with politically, but labels as hate groups. It engaged in this campaign while ignoring serious problems on the left. Now, I don't know if you're new to the show, you may not know this, but the Southern Poverty Law Center says that the Constitution Party is part of it, should be on this watch list of hate groups, because we talk about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers, the founding documents, the reasons why they set up a republic and not a democracy, and how the Constitution is still the Supreme Court of the land. We're labeled as a hate group because we like to bring up this history as far as that goes. So they labeled this group, which I don't agree with everything this group does. I wouldn't label them as a hate group, but the Trinity Comer thing I think was adjudicated wrongly, because that just opened up the doors for our tax dollars, me as a Christian who pays his taxes, going to a religious group to fix up a playground that they own, that they give access to the public. Okay? And so they think, well, the public has access to it, why can't we get tax money? I don't want my tax dollars going to that. But the Supreme Court said it was okay. So I mean, I don't think they're a hate group, but I don't agree with some of the rulings they've got in the past on that. And folks, and this brings me to another quick point here. You have all these different groups out there fighting for this freedom or that freedom, right? And as law firms or as think tanks and stuff like that, I think it's okay to split up that way. But I think in all the minutia and all the voluminous groups that are out there fighting for this freedom or that freedom, I think we've lost sight of what we're actually fighting for. Freedom's freedom, folks. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're talking about freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to redress your grievances as government, your freedom to the right to bear arms. Your other freedoms, not unreasonable searches and seizures, the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, not having to testify against yourself because it might be self-incriminating. there's groups for every one of these freedoms, but I think we lose the overall thing if we should be fighting for freedom for everybody on every level. And the problem is America has become so divided, and we've allowed the anti-freedom folks out there to do this to us. We've been so divided that in this Trinity Lutheran Comer case, you know, they great victory for the Trinity Lutheran Church, but it didn't expand religious freedom whatsoever. You can't expand freedom on the one side and take something away from somebody else on the other side in the form of tax dollars. That's not how freedom and liberty works. You don't get freedom and liberty by taking away from somebody else. If you're going to enhance your freedom and liberty, you better, by gummy, be enhancing somebody else's liberty and freedoms and not stepping on their freedoms and liberties. And this is exactly what this Trinity Lutheran Comer case did. Oh, religious freedom won the day. How? You took taxpayer dollars, and maybe there's people out there, and there is, because I'm one of them, that didn't want that money going to that playground. If the church owns the playground, you pay for it. I don't know how, but you pay for it. Do fundraisers. You know, we don't do it at the Church of Christ, but I know Lutheran Church do bazaars and bake sales and all that kind of stuff. Could have got the community together and just did a community bake sale or whatever to raise money to fix up that playground, and then it would have never went to the Supreme Court. So again, if you want freedom and liberty for yourself, you need to protect, while you're exercising your freedoms and liberties and protecting them for yourself, you better be protecting them for somebody else. I read that story and I was laughing about that. You know, I don't think they're a hate group, but I don't think they're on the right side of this either, even though the Supreme Court said they were. And you've heard me say this all along, that the Supreme Court is not the final arbiter of what is or is not constitutional. All right. This one here. This one bugs me. Anytime we talk about abortion, I get my hackles up about this. Hawaii to force pro-life pregnancy centers to advertise free abortions. This is by Jay Hobbs, posted yesterday over at the Daily Signal. All 5 Hawaii pro-life pregnancy centers will be forced to choose between advertising free abortions and defying the state's demands, defying the state's demands on Wednesday after Governor David Ige allowed a mandatory disclaimer bill to become law Tuesday night. Mirroring the 2015 California law, Hawaii edict forces locally funded pregnancy centers to post and distribute to each client a notification that the state offers free abortions, as well as a website link on where and how to schedule a taxpayer-funded abortion. The mandate, signet, and disclaimer form must include the following verbiage, and they go down through there and talk about that. Unlike abortion businesses, the state provides no funding for the pregnancy centers it targets with the law. Pregnancy centers found out of compliance could be slapped with a $500 citation for the first time offense and $1,000 per offense fine for subsequent refusals to advertise abortions. The law also opens up non-compliant centers up to individual civil suits. Hawaii's pregnancy help organizations are delivering caring, compassionate help for women and families at absolutely zero cost to the state taxpayers. Jor-El Godzi, president of Heartbeat International, an affiliation network that includes 3 Hawaiian centers, said, "No woman should ever feel so alone or trapped that she feels abortion is her only option. But this is exactly the situation the law like these create. Failure is not an option for us." Out of the 5 pro-life pregnancy centers in Hawaii, one center, a place for women in Waipaio, is a direct outreach of a church located on the campus of Calvary Chapel, Pearl Harbor. All the centers are opened and funded by Christians who have formed the organization of life-affirming alternatives to abortion. National pro-life groups, National Institute of Family and Life Advocates, Alliance Defending Freedom, and the American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ, are all 3 planning to challenge the law in state and federal courts, contending for free speech and free exercise of religion rights on behalf of the centers. So again, here we go with this again, with these freedoms and liberties. You can't have freedom and liberties and then have the state come in and force you not to be able to practice your freedoms and liberties with this law. I bet you, and I didn't do the research on this, but I bet you don't go to the abortion clinics on Hawaii and see pamphlets and stuff in there for these pro-life clinics in there. So first off, the law is biased that way. Second off, it's not protecting the unborn child, because that child has a right to life, liberty, and happiness, because life begins at conception, and we must protect the life of the child. And again, one of those was actually on church property that's being funded solely. All these are not taking a single penny from the state. And yet the state, Hawaii, man, I tell you what, whew, you talk about a leftist organization over there. Wow. And here's the left coast of California, and Hawaii's way out here to the left. But seriously, folks, this again, I hopefully the ACLJ will get this struck down and get this law. It's just ridiculous. And the abortion industry and those people who support it, it's ridiculous at the lengths that they're going to help this murderous industry survive. It amazes me at the actual lengths that they're willing to go to do this. So it's unbelievable, folks, unbelievable. First, Christians who believe in the First Amendment are a hate group, and now these pro-life clinics over in Hawaii are probably considered hate groups too, because they don't want to advertise for abortions. How dare you? How dare you? You must hate people. Now again, this has come from the emotional anti-freedom progressives in Hawaii, in this country. They're running on emotions. They're not running on reason or common sense or anything else. And speaking of common sense, WorldNet Daily has an article here about the left's war on common sense. And this is done by the editorial staff over there. I got to get me a little bit of a drink here. My Rocky Mountain High Brand lemonade. A major crime wave is ravaging your neighborhood. Not only frequent break-ins and burglaries, but armed robberies, assaults, and even murders. What do? Do you arm yourself and make sure your doors are locked at night and add security system? Or do you intentionally leave your doors unlocked, post a large brightly lit sign saying, "Welcome criminals and psychopaths. Here's a lot of money in here. The doors are unlocked and we're unarmed." In today's America, one of the two major political parties favors the latter option. Case in point, high-profile Democrat Rahm Emanuel is currently mayor of Chicago, where more than 4,000 people were shot last year, 762 of them murdered. The former Obama White House chief of staff is proud Chicago has some of the nation's most stringent gun control laws, even though decades of research proves more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens reliably results in less crime. Worse, the mayor defiantly boasts of his determination to keep Chicago a sanctuary city, meaning the city's police are prohibited from cooperating with federal law enforcement and getting criminal illegal aliens off the city streets by deporting them. Indeed, the sanctuary city designation serves as a welcome sign to violent criminal illegals, assuring that Chicago, like hundreds of other sanctuary cities, is a safe space for them. Unfortunately, it's not just with regard to immigration and gun control that the left piously champions policies that utterly defy common sense. It's the same in virtually every area of life. This is the focus of the unusual and insightful July issue of WND's monthly whistleblower magazine titled The Left's War on Common Sense. And it goes on down through there. And it's a good magazine. It's a good read. It's about 4 pages long. Just says what's in there. But WorldNet Daily makes a good point here about common sense. I heard it once defined as it's that sixth sense God gives you to keep your other five senses from making a fool out of yourself. And trust me when I tell you, that's been an adage in my life. Sometimes when I forget common sense, my other senses let me down. But this is the problem in America. When you have facts and truth that defy a narrative, those that support the narrative, they support it so much and so blindly that they won't allow any facts or truth to get in there. The truth is, if you look at these cities that have the highest crime rates, first off, they're run by Democrats, and second off, they have some of the strictest gun control laws in the country. But you look at other cities that have some of the more liberal or some of the most liberal protections of our freedoms. That's what I'm talking about here. Protections of our freedoms to keep and bear arms to protect ourselves. Their crime rates are very low. Matter of fact, and I keep citing this, and I have to dig this out sometime in my archives, Detroit police chief years ago interviewed something like 1,800 convicts or criminals in their jails there in Detroit, and they were more afraid of a citizen who legally owned and had a permit to conceal carry a firearm. They were more afraid of them than they were the police, because the police had to get to them. But if they were somewhere doing something mischievous or or shooting people or whatever, they didn't know who the people around them who might have a firearm that might start shooting back at them. They were more afraid of that because they didn't know where the threats were. Now, in these cities that have these strict gun control laws, criminals don't care. There's nothing to stop them. They can hear the police coming from blocks away, and they usually can be out of there most of the time before the police ever come on scene. And the only thing the police can do is pick up the pieces after all the crime's done. So, and I'm not saying that everybody in the country has to own a gun. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is when you have cities like Chicago that restrict the freedoms and liberties of their law-abiding citizens, first off, they're unconstitutional. Any of these gun control laws in these cities are unconstitutional because these are constitutionally protected rights, freedoms and liberties that the American citizens have. And honestly, I think we waste too much time going after these restrictive gun control laws on anything but a constitutional basis. I mean, I'd love to see one come up and the Supreme Court say that this is a constitutionally protected freedom and liberty that the American people have. And we all know that. Most of us right-thinking, commonsensical citizens out here, we know what our rights and freedoms and liberties are. And we know that. But we're also law-abiding. If they pass a law, we don't want to be found on the wrong side of the law because we know that we're not going to get support from the federal government to protect us from these cities or states when we're exercising our constitutional rights, when we're trying to protect our freedoms and our liberties and our loved ones and maybe our neighbors. And I just wish we would get a case up at the Supreme Court where they'd make a ruling that would cover every city. And honestly, and see, this is one of the things, since this is a constitutionally protected right, not that the federal government has any jurisdiction to restrict those rights, they can only enhance them. Honestly, I wish the federal government would come through and make a constitutional, for the land, for all 50 states, a constitutional concealed carry, or just carry. You carry it how you want. You want to carry it out in the open, be honest with everybody, or you want to conceal it. Okay? But make it, and maybe even we might even have to go in and do an amendment on it to really, solidify that. Make an amendment, an addendum to the Second Amendment, saying that constitutional carry. I don't know how you'd phrase it. I'm not a lawyer, but constitutional carry throughout the whole 50 states. Again, the theme today seems to be, American freeloaders and breaking people's or stomping on people's freedoms and liberties. Finally, the last article I want to get into, The Deadly Art of Political Correctness by Marissa Martin over at WND, World Net Daily. She posted this on the 13th. On the 13th, political correctness in the bane of all art. Enlisting the powers of mob psychology is more potent and vicious than censors could ever hope to be. Traditional censorship creates a villain-victim condition with the weakest non-state actor as the hero. Sympathy is reactively triggered against the powers that be, and the little guy struggles against some Goliath or other. But political correctness turns all that on its ear. In a PC world, the state poses as a weak and endangered victim. Miles of bureaucratic code are treated as divine or irreputable as scripture, or inerrant sometimes too. Fanatics of various obsessions zealously guard against discretion of non-believers, but as global warming deniers, it's a true orthodoxy in every way. Last March, the world lost a marvelous artist, political sage, and cartoonist. His name was Bill Leak. We didn't hear much about him in the U.S. because he was an Aussie. He loved his country and concerned himself with it, the good, the bad, and the ludicrous. Recently, he was very much overwhelmed by the latter. From 1983 to 2017, Leak and his personal notions were not only tolerated, but widely and publicly shared. A famed and prize-winning artist, he was considered mainstream, if slightly conservative. His little gig was with the Australian, where his cartoons with political and social commentary regularly lodged. Leak first faced censure for having opinions in a 2006 cartoon that portrayed the president of Indonesia as a dog mounting a Papuan native. It was a return shot after a Jakarta Daily cartoon depicted Australia's prime minister and foreign minister as mating dingoes. Speech control unit sanctioned Leak only, crude, offensive, and politically racist. Missing in this charade was the reference to the original issue, the ongoing genocide of Papuan natives by the Indonesian government. PC mouthpieces expressed no concern over this, but plenty over Leak's objections to it. They're very sick people. And folks, this I could go on and on and on, and they have a couple other examples here. This is a fairly lengthy article, but you see where this article is going to. Those that support political correctness pick winners and losers. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. They pick their winners and losers. If you're not within the PC crowd, you're a loser, and they're going to go after you. And just like this artist, Mr. Leak, they didn't say anything about the Jakarta papers doing the same thing. And folks, to me, that's all part of political free speech. And I'm going to end the show on this particular note. Hate speech is very subjective. The word hate linked with speech is very subjective. It is not an objective term, because how do you quantify what is hate or what is not? Now, if you disagree with it, you can say it's hate. If I actually was the one to make the statement, and I'll tell you that I said that statement with all the love in my heart, and I didn't mean it to be hateful at all, who are they going to believe? Well, they're going to believe in PC culture, they're going to believe those that were triggered. Those that saying your speech is hate speech. And for the most part, and this is what really bothers me, for the most part, when they call something hate speech, they call it hateful because they disagree with it. Not that it's actually hate speech, not that they're actually hating on anybody, but they call it hate speech because they disagree with it, because it's outside of their narrative. It doesn't feed into their talking points or their bullet points or whatever else. It doesn't feed into that. And so it's hate speech, like I said, it's very subjective. And I take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt. I take insults against me with a grain of salt, because I have in the back of my mind they don't know me. They're just throwing mud up against the wall. A lot of times some of my political opponents out there will try to Kafka trap me with statements. I don't bite into it. I'm like, if you call me a racist, the only thing I'm going to say is you prove it. If you're saying I'm a racist, you bring forth the proof and lay it out in front of me. If you say I'm misogynistic, you bring forth the proof and lay it out in front of me. Or sexist, or whatever the ist or phobia that you want to say. And that's, honestly, folks, that's the best response you can give these folks, these PC crowds, because if you say you're sorry or you say you'll think about it, then they got you. Especially if you know in your heart of hearts you're not what they're calling you. Make them prove it. It's just like these folks over at Let America Vote. There's no fraud. Prove there's no fraud. I have people say, well, you can't prove a negative. Yes, you can. You prove to me there's no fraud. You guarantee me that the only people actually voting are those that are actually allowed to vote. And I'm telling you, folks, it's amazing to me how these folks get away with all this stuff. It's amazing to me how this PC crowd out there can actually say what they say and no one call them on it. Folks, it's been a wonderful week. Great show. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all my listeners over at Blog Talk Radio. Had a new subscriber yesterday on YouTube. I appreciate them. This has been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day and God bless. And we'll either see you in church on Sunday or we'll see you Monday, bright and early at 12 noon on Monday. Have a great rest of the day and God bless again.
For using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.